All right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Heat Pumps 101 and an
I
Intro
had
to the
this
Boston
thing was
Energy
working, it was
Saver.
displaying, and now it's stopped.
Way before, I'm Brooks Winter, and I'm your host for this evening. I'm the Building Decarbonization Program Manager for the City of Boston, and I'll be your facilitator for tonight. Before we dive in, just want to let you know that we're recording this webinar. If you don't feel comfortable being recorded, feel free to turn off your camera. And we also ask that participants stay muted during the webinar to avoid interruptions and background noise. So as we go through the presentation tonight, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat at any time. We'll have a Q&A session later on in the agenda, but our team will be monitoring the chat throughout the webinar. And if you're wondering, yes, we will be posting a recording of the webinar on the Boston Energy Saver website, Boston.gov/save. So we're really excited for tonight's program. This webinar is brought to you in partnership with the Green Energy Consumers Alliance and the Boston Climate Action Network. And here's a brief overview of what we're going to cover. First, my colleague Deegan Larkin from the Boston Energy Saver team will be giving an overview of the Boston Energy Saver program. Then Loie Hayes from the Green Energy Consumers Alliance will present information about heat pumps, and then we'll have an open Q&A session. Then finally, our partners at BCAN will share some important information about other resources available for folks in Boston. With that, I'll hand it over to Deegan Larkin, our Boston Energy Saver manager, who will start her presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We are excited to talk to you about the city's newest energy saving initiative, the Boston Energy Saver program. My name is Deegan Larkin, as Brooks mentioned. I work for the city's Environment Department, and I'm the Boston Energy Saver Manager. So this new program, the Boston Energy Saver, it helps renters, homeowners, and small businesses access resources to upgrade their buildings and save on energy. The Energy Saver program is here to help all residents with cost saving and energy efficiency resources, with the goal that we can all lower the city's carbon emissions and make energy more affordable. So Brooks is going to press play on a video that we have. It shows the Boston Energy Saver in action, so you can really see how our team can support residents like you.
I've had oil heat since 2020, and every time there was a fill up, I had an invoice that was pretty eye-popping.
We wanted to be environmentally conscious about our footprints and to do things the right way.
I am a lifelong Bostonian. I live in Jamaica Plain, and this is also the home to my 16-year-old senior cat, Mittens. He was rescued by the MSPCA after enduring a horrible car accident.
I was born in Nepal. I came here as an immigrant when I was 18 years old for school, and Boston has been second home since. I really believe bringing everyone's story to the forefront, that we are all the same, and that starts with food and history and our shared culture.
Mittens, I felt like when I adopted him, I had this responsibility that he lived in the best environment possible. And I had been thinking about switching my heating for a while. We had a pretty warm summer, and one of the things I was worried about was not being home and having this senior cat recover. He's living his best retirement life now. I've only had these heat pumps since May, but it's really been night and day. Heat pumps have heating and cooling capabilities. They're quiet, efficient, just beyond my expectations.
This building, it's a historic building, so bringing in a gas connection was very expensive and time consuming, and it made all the sense to use all electric. I really recommend when restaurants can use all electric appliances. It's clean, it's efficient. We serve close to 80 to 120 guests a night, so it's really working well.
It's good to know that the City of Boston will be able to provide residents with answers and help them navigate if there are questions about moving to heat pumps.
Programs like Boston Energy Saver helps educate consumers on what they're getting into, how they are saving. So it's really important.
The startup cost seemed daunting, but with the different mass save options, they were working with my electric company. There were a lot of energy efficient tools like rebate programs for heat pumps and really incentives to help residents move forward with cleaner energy.
Every little actions that we take, it makes big changes, and especially for small businesses and restaurants. If every restaurant did their own part, I think a city can be a lot more efficient.
It's a process that's very doable, and if I could do it, I think others could probably do this too. I've had oil.
We always love to highlight community stories. So hopefully after tonight's webinar, everybody on this call will participate in the Energy Saver program, and then maybe you too can be featured in a future video. We do love spotlighting Boston residents and showing what energy efficiency looks like in real life. So when you connect with the Boston Energy Saver program, you will receive one-on-one support from a member of our team, which means you'll probably be talking to me, Maria, Paulina, Dima, or Brooks, who are all on this call tonight. What we'll do is we'll walk you through the different energy saving options for your home or your small business, and we'll help you select the best option for your space. So some of those energy saving opportunities that we can connect you with include weatherization, which means insulation and air sealing. These measures plug up small holes and cracks in your building, and they insulate your walls, and that helps you keep the heat in during the winter time, so it's nice and cozy and toasty, and keep the heat out during the summertime if you've got the air conditioner or a fan blowing to keep you cool. There are also many incentives out there for heat pumps, which of course we'll be talking about tonight in greater detail. But there are also incentives for water heaters, induction stoves, and a host of other energy efficient appliances that we can, at the Boston Energy Saver, can help connect you to those incentives. And we can also help you better understand your electric or gas bill with an energy bill checkup. So what our team does is that we review your utility bill, we help you get on an affordable electric rate, and help you get signed up for any discounts that you might qualify for. So who is this program for? Anyone in Boston can use our program. If you are a renter, if you're a homeowner, if you're a small business owner, you can reach out to the Boston Energy Saver team and we will help you find the best option for your building. Our program focuses on finding you cost-saving solutions. We want to make your home more comfortable and energy efficient. One example I want to highlight is from an East Boston couple, Austin and Jeff, who they always thought that heat pumps were out of their price range, but when they connected with our team at the Boston Energy Saver, we told them about the Mass Save program, and they learned that they could take advantage of a 0% interest loan, and they were able to install heat pumps right away. So if you are a Boston resident and you live in Dorchester, Roxbury, East Boston, Mattapan, Allston, Brighton, Hyde Park, or Fenway and Mission Hill, you could qualify for even more incentives through the Mass Save program's new designated equity community offer. It's providing additional funding for Boston zip codes that have historically faced barriers to participation. If you are not in one of those neighborhoods, please still reach out to us. There are plenty of incentives that you can take advantage of, and we're happy to talk to you about that. So how do you get started? How do you reach out to our team? If you are already ready to start your heat pump project, we suggest that you visit masssave.com/Boston, and you can schedule an energy assessment. It's no cost with the Mass Save team. If you have some questions about where to start, maybe it's not so simple as getting an energy assessment, you have other questions, then reach out to us at the Boston Energy Saver program and we can help you navigate those next steps. There are 3 different ways that you can connect with a member of our team. You can call our help desk at 617-635-SAVE. You could schedule a 30-minute consultation with us through our Calendly link that's here in the slides, and we'll put it in the chat, and it's also on our website. And you can email us at energysaver@Boston.gov. So with that, I will pass it back to Brooks. That was a quick overview of the Boston Energy Saver program, but we have plenty good content to keep going through today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deegan. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Loie Hayes from the Green Energy Consumers Alliance, who's going to give us a presentation all about heat pumps.
I think you're muted, though.
Yeah, and Loie, if you're speaking, you are muted. So come on off mute.
So sorry.
Awesome. There we go.
All right.
Here you go.
Thanks so much for including me in this wonderful event. Very excited about the launch of Boston Energy Saver. I'm going to cover what heat pumps are and the costs and incentives, and I'll be happy to participate in the Q&A afterwards as well. So the too long didn't read about heat pumps. Can heat pumps adequately replace a failing HVAC system? Yes, in fact, you need no fossil fuel backup. The heat pump can do all of your heating needs if you get the right heat pump. How much does it cost to install compared to a traditional fossil fueled HVAC system? Is really comparable when you include the incentives. Will heat pumps reduce my heating costs? That's the million-dollar question. Research, the latest research shows that about 64% of all Massachusetts households are expected to save by switching to heat pumps. Now, this is least likely for gas-heated homes, and we'll get into this a little more detailed in the slides. Now, specifically for landlords, what are the benefits of heat pumps for my tenants? Air conditioning without window units really saves your tenants' labor and gives them a much better cooling experience. They can have temperature control in each room. If some rooms are just too cold, you can have that heat pump run at a higher temperature. It's not at all difficult for a heat pump to do that. And air filtering, a better indoor air quality. So these are all wonderful advantages for your tenants. Just a moment about Green Energy Consumers. We are a nonprofit based here in Boston. We've been around for more than 40 years. We started as a heating oil buyers group, and we're all devoted to helping consumers make their own path to the zero carbon future that we're all getting toward. Heat pump basics. Why do we care about heat pumps? It's all about climate change. Here is a comparison of the greenhouse gases or the climate change pollution that's being emitted by different types of heating systems. And oil, propane, and natural gas are up here. Air source heat pumps are 3 times more efficient than electric baseboards, so much less emissions from those. And this is with the current electric grid. Actually, it's the electric grid from whenever this Mass Clean Energy Center graph was created, I think 2021. And as we move to a completely 100% clean electric grid, which we are steadily making progress on, and which you can do right now through one of the many green electricity programs, including Boston CCE, which I love to death. It's wonderful. You see the emissions from the electric heating sources go down to zero. And that's what it's all about. That's why there are incentives. So what is a heat pump? It's the same thing as an air conditioner or a refrigerator, only it can reverse cycle. So here is an example of one type of heat pump where you have an outdoor unit where you have the compressor, you have a fan, cold air is pulled through this in winter. And because the refrigerant is super cold, it is able to absorb heat even from 0-degree weather. that refrigerant is compressed, it's pumped inside, that hot refrigerant is mingled with room temperature air, and hotter air comes out, then goes in. The refrigerant is then pumped outside where it captures more heat. And the cycle just reverses in the summer, where heat is dumped outside and cooling is brought inside. There's no air exchange. It's just a small hole in the wall where the refrigerant lines come through. Now there is an outdoor part, and on a tight urban lot, you might have a situation like this where the compressor is outside in the alley. One side goes up that side of the house, and for the other side of the house, the refrigerant line is brought through the basement and then up the other side of the house if you need to have heads on both sides, those indoor units on both sides. That's an air source system. You can also have a ground source heat pump or a geothermal heat pump. This is an illustration of one that has a horizontal loop through the yard. You can also have a vertical loop. That's particularly useful in tight lots like these. There's now equipment that can get down a small driveway like this. If you have a backyard, the vertical wells can be drilled in the backyard. So it's pretty easy to understand, I think. Now, how does it configure in your home? It depends on whether or not your home already has ductwork. So if you have a furnace, you have hot air ductwork, and that's actually pretty easy to convert to a heat pump. The heat pump goes, down here in the basement where the furnace is, and uses the same ductwork to distribute hot and cold air. Now you do need to have a professional check that ductwork, make sure it's in good condition, and that it can handle cold air as well as hot air. Now, if you have central air conditioning, you may be able to reuse that ductwork for the heating element as well as the cooling that it's currently doing. But again, a technician needs to look at that ductwork to make sure that that's the case. If your home does not have ductwork, you have a boiler that produces hot water or hot air or hot steam to go through radiators or baseboard. Now, heat pumps don't usually produce hot enough water to easily replace boilers. There are some hydronic options available. You do have to work harder to find a contractor who's experienced with those. So most people who have a boiler and don't have central air are going to be considering a ductless system, also called a mini ducted or a ductless mini split. Those are all the same thing. You can have a single head, you can have multi-zones. You can also have a mini ducted head where you have an air handler either in the attic or in the basement with very short duct runs off of that air handler into adjoining small bedrooms. And always you want to insulate first whenever you're replacing your heating equipment. What do the ductless indoor units look like? Most commonly and most affordably is the wall hung units. These are easy to install, and no furniture is ever going to block this on the high up on the wall. And because of the fan in here, it runs at a very slow temperature, very slow speed, and it just gently mixes the air in the room. It's effective, even though your heat is starting out up top. It mixes nicely with the room. There are floor-mounted units as well. This is particularly useful on the first floor, and the refrigerant in that case can kind of come up through the basement, which allows you to have a unit on an inside wall. These wall units, these wall units are only on the outside walls for the most part. Ceiling cassettes are potential options as well, a little more expensive because there's some carpentry work involved, and you do have to have a space above where a technician can stand in the attic and insert those through the ceiling. Now, I want to make sure you understand the importance of sizing the equipment, and in particular, avoiding oversizing. So in this instance, we're estimating a building that has a heat load of 24,000 BTUs, that's British thermal units, And in this particular illustration, I'll show you two examples of this same floor plan. We're positing a 24,000 BTU head in the main open area. This would be like a house that has a wood stove, and that's the heat, either the sole heat or the primary heat. You could have a thermostat back here and have some, keep your boiler running if you wanted to. These bedrooms would be cooler in the winter, they'd be warmer in the summer. But for some homes, you put a ceiling fan in these rooms and that would be perfectly fine. Now, here's an illustration where there are too many heads in too small a space, and the contractor has proposed three 9,000 head, 9,000 BTU heads, which gives you a total of 36,000 BTUs. That's 33% more than what your heat load calculation called for. So you're buying too much equipment, and because heat pump systems are designed to run continuously at a steady pace, not ramping up and ramping down, there's going to be a real problem with them being too expensive to operate. And in the summer, it can be cold and clammy because the dehumidification happens slower than the cooling does. So in this instance, an alternative might be a 12,000 K or even a 9,000 K air handler that serves both of the bedrooms. If you can position that air handler in the attic or in the basement and have short duct runs to each of these rooms. Now, maintenance is fairly basic. There are air filters in each of these heads, and they do need to be cleaned. I suggest doing those at least seasonally, and that can be done if it's a rental unit, either by the tenant or by the property manager. It's very easy to do, although obviously if there's a head that's on the wall, you do need to get up on a ladder or a chair or something to get that. On the outdoor unit, you do need to keep snow and ice away from that. You don't want snow and ice blocking the airflow for that machine. It's advised to have a professional checkup every 2 to 3 years. I had one that went for more than 10 years without a checkup. So they're pretty stable machinery, so long as you keep this filter cleaned seasonally. Now, to prevent mold, occupants should run the fan function before shutting it off in summer. Say it's a beautiful day, you don't need your air conditioning, you want to shut off your heat pump. Instead of switching it to off, from cool to off, you switch from cool to fan. And then eventually you can put it to off when you feel there's no more cool air coming out of that. It's just, room temperature air being blown. Then you can shut it off completely. That allows the inside of the machine to come to room temperature and for it to dry out with the room temperature air, moving the moisture through, so that there's no longer condensation happening inside the equipment. If you do discover that mold has developed in the machine, you would see, when you open it up to clean the filters, you would see small black dots. Then you would need to get a professional to do a deep cleaning. And again, that's done, in a single appointment, a couple hours, and they've solved the problem. And it's similar in cost to, say, oil furnace maintenance. So, talking about costs, there are two types of cost: installation cost and operating cost. First, we'll talk about the installation cost. An oil boiler or a gas boiler is going to cost you, somewhere between 9,000 and say 14,000. These numbers are all from the Mass Save heating comparison calculator. You'll see links throughout these slides, and when we send you the follow-up email, we can send you all these links as well. So anyway, new oil or gas boiler costing you somewhere between 9,000 and 14,000, but there are no incentives, so you're going to have to pay that price, except for the low-income program. They're still incentivizing those. And with, of course, with an oil burner, you'll also have to face tank replacement at some point. Now, a ductless air source heat pump for the roughly the same size apartment, all of these use the same specifications. That's going to run between 10,600 and 14,300, and there are incentives. At present in 2025, it is $3,000 per ton for a whole home heat pump. A ton, an average home might you need 2.5, 3.5 tons, something like that. Now, I will note that this is going to be reduced slightly in 2026. All of these numbers will be reduced slightly in 2026. There is a partial home rebate that's slightly less than the whole home, and there's a moderate income rebate that is considerably more. Moderate income is fairly generously defined, and you can find that on the Mass Save website, the income qualifications for the moderate income. There's a 100% for low income and qualifying rental buildings in designated equity communities. And we're going to talk more about designated equity communities. You may need to get an electrical upgrade to have a heat pump because it is, drawing a lot of current on those cold nights. There's a federal tax credit for panel upgrades. Mass Save also offers a rebate for panel upgrades if you're adding a level 2 EV car charger. And there are low interest and no interest loans that help with panel upgrades as well. This site, Massachusetts Energy Savings Finder, is a great tool for finding incentives that apply specifically to your zip code, to your income level, various things like that. Now, on to operating costs. We want to be very clear. Last winter, a recent study showed that only 45% of Massachusetts households were likely to save on their winter bills when switching to heat pumps. But this winter, we have the new seasonal heat pump rate, and that will apply to anybody who uses a heat pump either for partial or whole heating in their home. And that is going to increase the number of households, the percentage of households that are likely to save, to 64%. The heat pump rate will shave between 4 to 7 cents per kilowatt off of your entire electric bill for the 6 months of the winter. And there are links here to both Eversource and National Grid where you can get more information about your home if you already have a heat pump. There are bigger discounts proposed by DOER, so that would make heat pumps, be even more cost effective to operate for a higher percentage of households. And according to this Bureau of Labor statistics chart, gas rates have been rising faster than electricity rates, and the USEAI, the Energy Information Agency, perhaps, projects that gas prices are going to be rising faster than electricity prices, over the coming years. So to answer the question about whether your home is in that 64% or not, I highly recommend the quote comparison report from Mass Save's decarbonization consultation service. That's a highly valuable consumer protection tool, and it will say right on there, we project, knowing what we know about your home and knowing what we know about the quotes that you've received for the specific equipment that you've received, your heating costs are going to go up or down by X number of percentage points or dollars. So that's a really, really, really valuable tool. About incentives, there are many of them. On the federal side, there's tax credits. The Inflation Reduction Act rebates didn't get to Massachusetts, but there are still tax credits through the end of this year. There are, of course, Mass Save rebates. In Boston, we're lucky to have the Boston HomeWorks Green Loan. There's the Mass Save Heat Loan, and there's the Mass Energy Saver Home Loan, which is really great. And this is income qualified, but it's up to 135% of area median income, which in Metro Boston is 190,000 for household income. So definitely do check these out once you get the links. For the federal tax credit, for owner occupieds, there's a 30% post-incentive cost rebate of up to $2,000 per year when you install a heat pump or a heat pump water heater, and that will be good through the end of December. There is also a geothermal battery and solar tax credit, which is not capped, also 30% of your post-incentive cost. And for commercial projects, if you're a landlord want to do an energy upgrade at a rental property, you have some grace time on the solar, battery, and geothermal projects. There's also a 179D for commercial renovations that are more like a gut rehab that would cut total energy use by 25%. The mass incentives, of course, vary by where you live, how many people are in your house, and what your income is. So here's an example in Boston. Low income is defined up to this 67K, roughly 68K. And ABCD is handling the heat pump installations. They're prioritizing oil and electric resistance households. Moderate income is up to about 90K, and that is served through the Massive Enhanced Incentive and $16,000 per apartment or home. And if you had a 2-apartment home, you could get $32,000 if you converted both of them to whole home heat pumps. Then the market rate is for 90,000 and above, and that's the $10,000 per home cap, $3,000 per ton of heating capacity. Now, the designated equity communities, this is brand new, so not all of the details are clear yet. But from this is directly from the Mass Save website. For all homes that are in 1 through 4 apartment buildings in the following zip codes, you can get 100% free insulation and air sealing. You can get increased rebates up to $25,000 on qualifying energy efficient heating, cooling, and water heating equipment, and additional incentives to address pre-weatherization barriers. These are things like mold, moisture, knob and tube wiring, that type of thing, asbestos, vermiculite, that type of thing. For rental properties in 1 through 4 unit buildings in the same zip codes, again, with no income qualification, but you do, of course, have to have landlord's permission. No cost air source heat pumps. This is not for gas heated homes, but for oil, if you had propane, if you have electric resistance, and up to 100% of health and safety barrier remediation. And Mass Save is providing a turnkey delivery experience. And you can get more information on this designated equity communities site. So that's a really big deal. Oh, and these are the Boston zip codes. There are many communities around the state, in addition to Boston, that have been designated as designated equity communities. So these apply to those as well. Now, if you are replacing a boiler with a heat pump, you may need to also replace your water heater. I'm just going to quickly go through this. These are more efficient, and you can get this hybrid model, as you see here, or you can get a split model where the heat pump part of it is in a separate box, or it's even outside. And there are incentives for that. There's now a heat pump water heater marketplace on Mass Save, which is primarily useful for people who are replacing an electric resistance hot water tank with a heat pump water tank. But you can get referrals through it as well if you're not in that. So before you start looking before you start talking with a contractor, get a home energy assessment if you have not had one in the last 2 years. These are required to qualify for incentives, and do make any recommended insulation and air sealing upgrades that they suggest. And do research the incentive and loan programs like Boston Energy Saver, of course. And you can use that Mass Energy Savings Finder, Mass Save Heat Loan, and the Mass Energy Saver Loan Program that I mentioned earlier. Energy Sage is another source of information that you want to explore, because they can help you with a no-cost solar assessment, just by filling out creating a profile on their website, which again is free for you to set up. And that will help you estimate, does solar make sense for my house? Because if you have solar, then your cost per kilowatt for operating that heat pump is way lower than anything you're able to buy from anyone else, for obvious reasons. If you own the means of production, you're going to be able to get a better return on your dollar. So when you
Lillian,
start
would you
talking-
mind going back to that last slide? Because I want to make a quick point of clarification, something that
Please do.
I learned recently. So you mentioned that a home energy assessment is required to qualify for incentives. That is the case, I believe, for all buildings 4 units and under. So the first step there is a Mass Save home energy assessment if you haven't done one recently, and they'll tell you what you need to know in order to start a heat pump project or weatherization, et cetera. For larger buildings, because I know we've had some questions in the chat about condos and 5+ unit buildings, we clarified recently that you don't necessarily need to have an energy assessment before moving forward with a heat pump installation. You can just go directly to an installer. So if you want to talk about that with the Energy Saver team, the multifamily programs are good and a little bit more complicated, particularly if you're in a condo building, for example. But our team is happy to talk that through with you if that applies to you. So just wanted to clarify, you may not necessarily need an assessment if, say, you can't get your condo association on board for a whole building assessment if you live in a 5+ unit multifamily building.
Great. And I heard some great news at a recent event that condos that have completely separate heating equipment may qualify for all of the 1 through 4 incentives if they can be dealt with as a completely separate building. And I know in some Boston neighborhoods, there are condo associations where you have basically adjoining duplexes in a condo association. So definitely follow up with us if you live in that style of building and you have this question. So when you start talking with heat pump contractors, you want to make sure ask them, are you one of the approved installers for Mass Save? And you could also ask them, are you part of the heat pump leaders network for Mass Save? That's another way to identify more highly qualified installers. Then, is the equipment you're recommending eligible for cold climate rebates? Some companies will try to sell you, are used to installing heat pumps primarily for air conditioning, and they may give you a good price for that, but it may not qualify for the rebate because it actually is not designed to provide heating down below freezing. And how will you calculate my heat load? Will you just estimate it, or will you formally calculate it? There's a technical calculation that HVAC contractors all use to estimate heat load, actually to predict heat load. And you want to get that as accurate as possible for the reasons that I talked about before, about not oversizing your equipment. And once you start collecting quotes, we really suggest you get at least 3 quotes And you should consider asking the contractors, what brand of heat pumps do you install? And then choosing contractors who will give you quotes for different types of brands, because a lot of contractors will give you a quote for a Mitsubishi, which is the most expensive equipment. It's reputed to be the most efficient as well. But the Mitsubishis are always going to be more expensive as well. So get different brands if you can, and then use this no-cost virtual independent consultation through the decarbonization consultation at Mass Save, and get that quote comparison report. And then you can see, oh, this other brand is actually more cost competitive than the Mitsubishi, or the Mitsubishi is the one that I need for my home because it's really gonna, tick all the boxes. And you're welcome to come to our website as well, where we have lots of information. And I have my contact information here. And if you would not mind filling out a brief survey so we can improve our programs, you are certainly welcome to do that as well, either now or when you get the slides. And I'm happy to turn it back to Brooks.
Loie, thank you so much for all of that great heat
Oh,
pump
good.
knowledge and information. So with that, I think we're actually ahead of schedule. So thank you to Deegan and Loie for being nice and concise. With that, we're going to go into our Q&A session. So Paulina Diefenbach from our team has been monitoring the chat. We've been trying to answer some of your questions as we go along. But Paulina, are there any questions from the chat that you want to answer live and or throw over to Loie to answer?
Yes, thank you, Brooks, and thank you, Loie and Deegan, for the great presentations. We had someone ask, they have an old mini split system, and they were asking if there's any incentives to upgrade. And Loie kindly shared that Mass Save offers support for upgrading an older system. So if you have questions about your current energy system, please reach out to our Energy Saver Help Desk. We are happy to take the time to think about your home as a special, unique unit, and then see what we can find for you in terms of resources to connect you with. We also had other folks ask what the difference was between Mass Save and Boston Energy Saver. I think that's a great question because many of us have heard about Mass Save, but for the longest time, there haven't been enough resources to help people navigate the entire process through Mass Save, from getting a home energy assessment to exploring maybe if it makes sense to upgrade a system like a heat pump or another appliance. And so we are here to answer your Mass Save questions, as well as do bill checkups and potentially explore other options to improve your energy system at home. We have some condo owners that joined the call, and they were not sure if any of these benefits really apply to them, especially if you are part of a condo association or live in a larger building. And the answer that my colleagues have shared is that yes, you will qualify for Mass Save benefits, and there may be different pathways depending on the size of your building, as well as whether you want to explore a rebate, a home energy assessment. So like Deegan mentioned, everyone can participate in Boston Energy Saver, and we have provided the link to our website where you can schedule a consultation and we can talk about your condo. And I think the other thing is, like someone pointed out, the fact that installers can charge $25,000 to $27,000 for system upgrades. And the great news is that many of you in the call have already been paying into the Mass Save program for years. And so there are rebates that will cover many of the costs. Specifically, if there's anyone in the call who's heating with electric resistance or heating oil, there are special incentives to upgrade to heat pumps and then unlock that new winter discount rate so you can start saving money. And we're happy to discuss those more with you all individually. Loie, do you want to jump in to share any other themes or questions that stood out?
No.
We have a question in the Q&A section, which Carl Bloom found. Carl, thank you for your question. Carl asks, how are differential electricity rates administered per household? Is additional meeting required? So Carl, I assume that you're asking about the new heat pump rates that are being offered in Eversource territory here in Boston. For Eversource customers, they're our electricity provider for I
Can
think
you be a
everyone in
little
the city.
louder, Brooks?
Yeah, sorry. So Eversource is now offering heat pumps throughout their territory. No additional metering required. And yeah, if you have a heat pump and you installed it with a Mass Save rebate, I believe after 2018, you should be automatically enrolled. And going forward, the plan is that you will be automatically enrolled for the heat pump rate, which is lower in the winter, as Loie said. Always good to double check. And if you installed your heat pump prior to that, or say it was in a building like a new construction building that maybe didn't go through the Mass Save program for whatever reason, but still has heat pumps, there's a sort of a manual process where you can take a picture of your equipment and submit it to Eversource, and then they will register you for the heat pump rate. So highly recommend that folks check that out, and we can include a link in the chat to that page. So yeah. Also see a question in the chat from Bart about how that discount is being funded. So I'm not an expert on the discount rate. My understanding is that the rate basically accounts for the value that heat pumps are providing to the grid in the wintertime, and that it's just part of the sort of the pooled funding that is being collected from ratepayers. So there's no additional charge that's being added to anybody else's bill. Your rate doesn't go up in the summertime, for example. Yeah, just sort of a new rate that tries to sort of align the cost of running heat pumps with their value as a decarbonization tool, and also sort of accounting for the extra space on the grid that we currently have in the wintertime.
I think Joanne has a question. She raised her hand.
Yeah, Joanne, do you want to come off mute and ask your question? Maybe we lost Joanne.
I see Jane's question about geothermal, and I think right now we can speak to 2025 through 2027 that there are excellent incentives in our state for heat pumps at home. I don't know if any of my colleagues can talk more about the geothermal.
Yeah, Jane, great question. And so Jane asks, I'm interested in heat pumps, but also wistful about how much more efficient networked geothermal would be. Does the city have any sense of whether particular Boston neighborhoods might be reasonably considered for networked geothermal pilots in the next 5 years? Or is it better to pursue heat pumps for our homes individually and just hope our neighbors get to benefit from a neighborhood level approach further down the road? Great question, Jane, and a little difficult to answer definitively. I would say that if you're excited about heat pumps, the incentives are better than they are going to be for the foreseeable future, and particularly with that federal tax credit that Loie mentioned that expires at the end of the calendar year, and the Mass Save incentive levels decreasing in 2026. They'll still be good, but they are, yeah, some of that incentive is going away. So I would say if you're excited about heat pumps in the near future, don't wait around. And there are some networked geothermal pilots happening around the state, one including one in Boston that National Grid is running at a Boston Housing Authority property, another one that you may have heard about on the news in Framingham that Eversource is installing. Those are just pilots, and to my knowledge, there are no immediate plans to sort of scale those up. It's expensive to do that work, and I think challenging, particularly because like drilling for those is a difficult thing to do, particularly in dense urban areas. So might be a good solution for the future, but no immediate plans in the next 5 years to scale up networked geothermal that I'm aware of. Bart, see you with your hand up. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. Quick question. I'm more interested in the amount of accountability with regards to the costs that most of the vendors are charging. It is a well-known fact that many of the companies in the Boston area or Greater Massachusetts have been bought out by investment organizations. And if you search around a little bit, you'll find out that one of the reasons why they're doing so is because it is now being considered a highly profitable opportunity for them. I asked for 3 quotes. My first 2 quotes were in the $25,000 to $27,000 for my 750 square foot condo here in Boston. One of the suppliers, a well-known area, I asked them to itemize it. They refused to do so. The second person, I asked them to itemize it, and they did. And they indicated the equipment that was being used, and it was about $15,000 for the equipment alone. That same equipment I was able to obtain, or could obtain, and have it drop shipped to my apartment for about $6,000. Same Mitsubishi equipment. And by the way, I'm a very strong supporter of Mitsubishi, the best rated company in Japan right now. When I took that even that $12,000 equipment that after their markup, we were still over about $17,000. No, about $15,000 for our installation costs. Now I'm literally replacing an upgrade of a mini split system for air conditioning and going to heat pumps. And I figured out for the 2-day install, the charge was about $750 per hour, per man hour, per person for 2 people for 2 days. And what I'm seeing is that the costs are going up, the incentive keeps increasing, and the cost keeps getting loaded onto the delivery charges. So I guess I'm really inquiring about to what extent Mass Save is reviewing the costs that these people are charging and the true costs of the equipment to see if they are in fact what appears to be gouging based upon the opportunity that I have potentially a $10,000 credit.
Yes,
Complicated.
Bart. Yeah, complicated question. I'll try to do my best to answer it. So, I think you're right that particularly in the past, Mass Save has had more control over the costs of, say, like weatherization and less so over heat pump installation costs. One of the things that they are I think that they are trying to do over the next few years is to bring the costs of their programs down generally. I think that's been a real focus recently, but also to ensure that the quality of work and that the prices are competitive. So that is so 2 things I'll note. One is the the heat pump vendor search tool on the MassSave website now includes they have a long network, and then they have a new-ish designation, which is their sort of heat pump leaders network, which I believe includes some sort of factoring of price into who they designate to be sort of leaders in the heat pump installer space. And the other thing I'll just mention that might be a useful resource for folks if you're interested in competitive heat pump pricing is there's an organization called the Laminar Collective. I'll put their link in the chat. This is a small organization based in Cambridge that does market research and particularly like secret shopper type stuff where they get bids from multiple contractors and then organize group purchases of heat pumps. So Marie, who you met in our launch video, actually went through Laminar Collective to get her heat pumps, and they might be worth looking into as well. But yeah, I think that is Bart, you raise an important issue, and that yeah, I think that also just sort of reinforces Loe's point about shopping around, asking those questions to your installers, and I would be remiss if I didn't also use this as an opportunity to plug the Boston Energy Saver, because I think part of what we're trying to do is help ensure that folks are getting good information as they're starting to think about solutions like heat pumps for their buildings. Thanks,
Great.
Bart.
Well, if I can add just one last plug for, not for me, but for anybody out there, is that the shopping process is, yes, do shop around. It was not until I got brought my third person in, literally laid the 2 quotes out in front of him, and I laid in front of him the cost of the equipment that I could literally have drop shipped to my home address from HVAC Direct. And at that particular point, I finally got a quote of $15,000, which, expensive, was adequate and proper from a well-known installer north in Andover area.
Yeah, thanks, Bart. You know, I'll
Welcome.
also just note, like, labor is expensive in the Boston area, and it's expensive to do any work here. But I think, yeah, hoping that MassSave and others can, and as the space gets more competitive, and as we all get better at determining what's a good deal and what's not a good deal, that those prices will come down or at least stay in check. So. I want to keep us on time here. Paulina, do we have time for like one additional question?
Yes.
Okay. Judy asked in the chat, do you know if any local installers still exist? Judy, Paulina put in the chat the link to the heat pump installer search tool. One other thing that I will say is that, like, one of the things that we're hoping to do with the Boston Energy Saver program is support local businesses in getting involved in doing this work. So that is that's sort of a long-term goal of ours. But if you all know anybody who works in HVAC or plumbing and heating, who might be interested in pivoting their business in Boston to get involved here, please have them reach out to our team, because we know that we need more folks doing this work if we're going to meet our lofty goals. I don't think we mentioned this earlier, but we're trying to install 5,000 heat pumps in Boston over the next 3 years with the help of Eversource and National Grid and the MassSave program. And they have committed to investing $150 million in Boston through our partnership with them over those 3 years. And we hope that that will be a good business opportunity for local businesses, minority and women-owned businesses in the city. So just wanted to make that quick plug. Great. So with that, want to bring us down the home stretch here. So Grace Umania from the Boston Climate Action Network is here and is going to share one slide with us with some other useful resources. While she's pulling up the slide, or Grace, do you want me to show you? Do you want to pull up your slides? You should, yeah, perfect. While she's doing that, I also just wanted to give Taylor Buck, who is in the audience, a shout out. Taylor works for Eversource, is a new member of the team. She's working with the Boston Energy Saver team directly to sort of help troubleshoot problems with the Mass Save team. So really excited to have her partnering with us, and thanks for being here tonight, Taylor. Okay. Grace, over to you, and then we'll bring it home.
Thank you, Brooks. Yeah, thank you everybody for participating tonight, learning about heat pumps or getting to learn more about them. I'm Grace Amania. I work at Boston Climate Action Network. We're a citywide group that's done energy education and advocacy work for more equitable access to Mass Save for decades. I'm currently our Energy Justice Director, and I'm working in the designated equity communities of Roxbury, Dorchester, Hyde Park, Mattapan, and East Boston. And so my role tonight is just to highlight some already existing programs more focused on rates that can help, continue to help save, money, and throughout this process, just making more aware of that. As we're hoping that folks are taking advantage of heat pump stuff while it's at its best offers that they are right now. So what you're seeing on the screen is kind of just reiterating what Loie had shared and what Brooks is saying more about in the Q&A, is lowering your electricity rate through your heat pumps. So there is that heat pump rate that goes during the heating season from November to April. It's actually 2019 systems. So if you were signed up anytime before that, you might not be on it, in which case you can check this out on the Eversource website or contact the Boston Energy Saver team to make sure that you are making this switch and saving more than ever. So, sorry, just clicking the next slide here. The next thing that we want to share with y'all is, if you're not already on it, or that you should already be on our money-saving municipal electrical supply of Boston Community Choice Electricity. So when you pair this with the heat pump, you're heating and cooling your home with cleaner, more affordable energy. And it's important to know who your energy supplier is. So if it isn't Boston Community Choice Electricity, also BCC, you might be on an untrustworthy third-party supplier. This could lead to you paying higher costs for your energy, and it means that there's also less demand for local renewable energy. So we do more of this education during energy bill checkups that have been mentioned. So you can sign up for one of those conversations tonight if you need to learn more. Make sure that you're on BCC. And finally, speaking of these energy bill checkups, we want to make sure that folks are completely understanding their bill. It's a really good step to have as you're going through your journey of energy efficiency, of decarbonization. So want to make sure that folks, if they qualify for a utility discount rate, it could save you up to 40% on your electric bill. So combining that again with the lower and newer like heat pump rates, not to be dramatic, but right, these are some of the kind of like groundbreaking, savings in clean energy history. So key takeaways here, through these additional pathways, you can get more savings while being part of the solution to the clean energy transition. So if you're looking for a heat pump for your home, but you haven't already gotten like your home energy assessment, and you're not sure how energy efficient your home is or isn't, yeah, you can also check out masssave.com/Boston. And if you're ready to just talk about heat pumps, Boston.gov/save, and get this number in your head, share it with your neighbors, 617-635-7283, to talk to our friends here at Boston Energy Savers team. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Grace. And yeah, thank you for sharing all of those useful resources, and really love the work that BCAN is doing. Okay, that's it for our program. So as we wrap up tonight, just wanted to summarize some of the key takeaways for y'all. So First, Boston Energy Saver is a new service offered by the City of Boston that assists renters, homeowners, and small businesses in upgrading their buildings to achieve significant savings. Our help desk provides one-on-one support, making it easier to find the best options for you and your family or small business. If you're excited about heat pumps and want to learn more or talk through whether they're right for your home, visit Boston.gov/save or call 617-635-7283 to connect with our team. We learned about heat pumps and that they're a highly efficient option for heating and cooling your home, that there are some great incentives like rebates, heat pump rates, and those federal tax credits available through the end of the year. We'd encourage you to reach out to our program partners and visit all the websites that folks have been putting in the chat tonight. If you have additional questions after tonight, and again, we will post the recording of tonight's webinar to boston.gov/save. Finally, just wanted to give a big thank you to our presenters, our partners at Boston Climate Action Network and Green Energy Consumers Alliance. Thank you, Loie, and thanks, Grace. And to all of you here for taking the time to join us tonight. We hope that this has been informative and helpful, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening.